So this week's podcast, we welcome back Senior First Officer Rosie Scott, who's talking about her pet peeves, or if you like, the things that kind of, she most notices in our Lovefly Facebook group. And she's come back. You may remember she's been on a couple of other episodes before, but it's absolutely brilliant. And you're going to love this, that she brings it across in such a very down to earth and relatable way that you should find this super, super helpful. And we're talking all sorts of things, including turbulence and weather. So a really great episode. Enjoy. So this week we welcome back the amazing Rosie Scott.
Ooh. Hi. Thanks so much for having me back.
No, thank you. Because for those who, this is your first time, you're in for a treat. But Rosie has done 2 podcasts for us before. About 181, I think it was. It's roughly around.
Yeah,
I looked it up earlier, which was brilliant, and there's some really nice, funny bits in that. And then also, there's one where we did for children, which was a special, where a bunch of kids were asked some questions, arranged by Sarah Lee, who came on a Manchester course, and then Rosie answered them, which was just great. So you should listen to that one as well, because a lot of people find that super helpful. So Rosie is back today, prompted by Mr. John Bond, I think, to do a bit of myth busting or pet peeves. I don't know what it is, something like that.
Yeah. I just sort of judging by, because I'm on the Facebook group and I read through people's comments and what's making them sort of have moments of sort of wobbly moments before getting on the plane and stuff like this. And I've noticed a little bit of a trend on a few bits. So yeah, this is sort of aviation myth busting /
Nice.
Assumptions and all this. And I think, if I do find myself repeating myself on some of these comments, and so I thought maybe you just get out there.
Yeah. Okay, so could you do the potted intro then, for in case this is somebody's first experience of the Rosie Scott show? Who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi everyone, and hi again if you've seen me before. So my name's Rosie. I'm a pilot. I have been flying for I'd go say it's 20 years now. I've hit my 2 decades of flying. Yeah. And I've been flying jets for 13 years now. I've flown the A330, A340, A350, short haul and long haul. I used to fly out in Asia, and now I'm based over in Heathrow now. And I'm just happy to impart any knowledge, because I think one of the biggest things is, one of the biggest driving factors behind a fear of flying is the lack of information that's available to people.
That made you go Airbus family, by the way. I'm just curious.
Oh no, you just got told. you show up on day one and they go, you're Airbus, you're Boeing.
Oh right, okay, fair enough. So it wasn't a choice. Yeah. So out of those, which is your favorite out of the different fleets?
I think my favorite is probably the 350 to fly. I think it's a really cool aircraft to fly. Lots of fun gadgets, but the 330's always been my base aircraft. That's the one I've got by far the most hours on. I probably got like 5,000 hours on that aircraft. So it's one of those ones where it's like, it's like the old pair of slippers that you don't want to throw away. They're just too comfortable. It's too easy, so it's that's probably what it is. It probably is at my heart the 330, but the 350's got some pretty cool gadgets on.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard an A330 compared to an old pair of slippers, but they're comfortable. That's all right. Yeah. So I like the A350. It seems pretty fancy. That and I don't know how it compares to the 787 from a pilot's perspective, but when you go into those 2 aircraft, maybe it's just certain airlines I've flown with, but they are stunning inside, and you feel like you're in this like really modern thing, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's wild, some of the stuff, and it's just some of the gadgets are totally unnecessary, but make your life very, as a pilot, make it very convenient. And there's other things you're like, wow, that is clever.
So you better tell us some of those things, because I'm now intrigued. But if you can weave them into your stories, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So you've got a list of things. So in the Lovefly Facebook group, Rosie pops up and occasionally goes, right, that's not true, and that's not a problem with models, which is very, very great of you to do that, because I know you're all over the place. So not you, but flying, So it would be amazing. We just go through some of them. Okay, go on then. Myth number
All right, well, the first one I'm going to go with, and yeah, so myths in aviation. The first one I'm going to go with is one that's like personal. Airplanes fly themselves. No, they don't.
Okay.
No, so an analogy I'm going to give to you, and you're going to listen to it and be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and that's how I feel when people say that airplanes fly themselves. When you clean your carpet, you don't clean your carpet. You vacuum your carpet, right? You don't go around and pick up every piece of dirt and all the dog hairs and cat hairs and then take them to the bin and put them in the bin, right? Your vacuum cleaner does the cleaning. But no one says, well, you don't clean your carpet. Your vacuum cleaner cleans your carpet, because your vacuum cleaner sits in the cupboard doing nothing until someone gets it out and operates it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know why people think that the airplane will just sort of magically do all the stuff by itself. It will do nothing until I tell it to do something. It doesn't know where it's going. It doesn't know anything until I plug it into the machine and I put it all into the box, saying like, this is where you're going. This is how I want you to do it. And even then, I intervene all the time to make more efficient flight. So it's absolutely wild. The autopilot is considered a tool to utilize to make the flying more efficient. It's not another pilot. It's not something that does my job for me by any stretch. It just can't. So that's probably the number one, my selfish one.
Who's been saying that to you then? Name them. No, it's right.
Yeah, I've got a list. Don't worry. No, it's yeah, you see it all the time. It's a bit of a trope now. The whole like these planes fly themselves. What are these pilots doing? And all this stuff. But no, it's absolutely not. And you know, those same people that if they went into the flight deck and I said, "Go on, you give it a go," then they would absolutely, they would soil their trousers in an instant. So that's my
Thanks.
that's one of the assumptions, is that the autopilot's doing the flying. It's not. It's a tool for my use to make more efficient flight. That's what it is.
That's a very good way of describing it, actually, because some of the pilot speakers we've had on the courses will often say, when there's one that he always used to say, right, how many pilots are there in the flight deck? And he'd say, and so I'd say 2, and he'd say, well, there's 4. He's got 2 autopilots as well.
Autopilot.
So you and he would clash?
Yeah, it depends. It depends how you think about it. But yeah, it's a tool. That's what it is.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel better for getting that out now?
Yes, finally the word is out. I can retire now. Yeah.
That's it. So remember this: your aircraft is like a vacuum cleaner. Is that the message?
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't get me started with Roombas,
Okay, right. Okay, so that's myth number 1 out of the way. Go on then. What would you...
Right. Let me think. So I've got, goodness, let's start with, okay, I'm going to start with outside of flying in itself, and then I'm going to go into things like weather, because weather's a big one that's going to come later. So how about this? Media reporting on aircraft incidents and accidents.
Yes.
They're sensationalized is a gentle word for some of the stuff you talk about. So I think I spoke to a friend of mine who's a journalist, and I always say, like, why do you write them like this? Like, why don't you get on the phone and call someone and ask them to tell you what's going on and all this stuff? And they said, when you look at there's just a national news outlet, let's say, not an aviation news outlet, a national news outlet, and so when you actually look at how much news there is out there and how much of it is aviation related, it doesn't make sense to have like a consultant on staff or anything like that, because it's like once every 2 months there is an aviation related article. So they just kind of go with it on the fly, and unfortunately they use their own assumptions to make these articles as well. And so then you're just getting this sort of misinformation, whether it's deliberate or not. A lot of it is just mistaken assumptions, but they love to sensationalize it. And as I've always said, like go with, like, have a look where the money's going and stuff like this. Like these clicks get the money, so there's the clickbait headlines and stuff like this. So you've got to be really careful, because they're drawing you in. And then don't forget the algorithm. you start clicking on that stuff, it's going to think you like looking at that stuff, and it's going to send you more. So like, don't forget the algorithm. So you start clicking on that and you got a fear of flying. Guess what? You're going to have 10 articles.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it didn't things in aviation didn't just start happening. They're always there. They just didn't deliver it to your phone at that point until you started clicking on all that stuff. So don't worry too much about it. It really isn't increasing. It's not changing. It's always been like that.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
a
media
good point,
sensation.
actually. Yeah, well, I've been a lot less kind than you have, but I feel a little bit of compassion now, because you're right. That's a fair point. You know, it's like, because it's so rare, you can't afford to pay for it. There's no need to have a consultant. Therefore,
Yeah.
that prove what they know. Well, I do. It does make me rant. I mean, I don't have your training, but I still, when I see stuff, if I see a film and they put something ridiculous in there, I just think, oh,
Well,
for sake.
yeah. Was that there's that film where he flies. Is it? It's a Denzel Washington film, and he manages to like fly
Light. I think it's
in
called Light or something.
Is it called Fly upside down? And I remember watching it, and that happens in the first like 10 or 15 minutes of the movie, and I just and just switched it off. This is stupid. So no, yeah, and there's always like the classic because of the role that pilots have, the pilots dying on the plane, the pilots dying first in like an aeroplane action movie.
Of course.
It's a trope because it's more exciting, because now it's who's going to land the plane.
Yes.
So all of this stuff feeds into this just nonsense. It's just, just try and take yourself out of it and take yourself away from that. There's no point.
Yeah. Okay. So that's quite good. I totally agree with that. The media, not at all helpful, and I like the point as well around the algorithm, because it does speed it, and it does look at what you're looking at, and even just pausing on something, the algorithms are very smart.
Yeah, because it doesn't understand why you're clicking on it. It thinks that you like it just by clicking on it and interacting with it. Or if you send it to someone, it knows that you sent it to someone, and it goes, that interested you somehow. I'm gonna send you more. All of that stuff. It tracks all of it.
Okay, so here's a question: would you watch something like Top Gun?
I have watched Top Gun, and I watched Top Gun 2, and Top Gun 2 is better. And
How realistic is it?
it's very difficult to tell because it's the military, and I never did the military stuff, so I don't know is the answer. I think some of the stuff. Well, Top Gun 2 was all actually filmed in airplanes.
Yes.
So it was all that stuff is realistic flying, because it has to be, right? Top Gun was filmed in like a little simulator. It's actually really clever how they did it, because they filmed it in a simulator, but the simulator didn't move, and they had this bright light to simulate the sun, so they'd move the sun around to make it look like they were turning. It was pretty cool as like cinematography. But
Just really
I think one of the
for me.
But yeah, it's pretty yeah, I honestly I don't know with Top Gun and Top Gun 2, like the realism in it. I think the bravado between like all the pilots are a bit silly, but I don't know if it actually exists or not. I hope it doesn't.
Okay. So Rosie Scott gives a thumbs up to Top Gun 2. Did you watch the Mission Impossible, the Dead Reckoning, along with these up on those funny little the biplanes hanging off them? Do you see all
Oh no, I didn't see that. No, what's he doing in it?
crazy stuff?
Is
I
it
just
something?
I just wondered if you. So have you ever done anything like wing walking or anything like that?
No, I haven't actually. Would I do wing walking? I guess so. I mean, you kind of bolted to the plane, so I mean, I don't see why not.
We
Why
had
couldn't they?
two wing walkers on this. Well, we had one of them on this podcast,
Oh, cool.
and she does this thing where she climbs out of the seat, unclips herself, climbs up whilst it's flying along, then clips herself in, and then does all these acrobatics.
Yeah, see that
I
stuff.
was having
No.
palpitations just listening.
Yeah.
You know.
No, that stuff. No. If it was like I'm just clipped in and from start to finish, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, but no, I don't think I could do. I don't think I would climb out and do all that stuff. No way.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. Next. What?
Oh, next. Okay. So staying with the general aviation stuff. Oh yeah, this one. Um, airlines or pilots from other countries mean potentially a less safe, like a worse safety record or something.
All right.
Because I think
Okay.
I've seen a few people comment about, and I think it's TUI or one of the, all of these airlines can do this, where they hire out another airline and other pilots to operate because maybe they've not got enough aircraft for the
Yeah.
season or something like this. And people panicking about this. You're not allowed in to UK airspace. I'm just going to refer to UK because we're a UK. I understand that there are people all over the world, but like you're not allowed into UK airspace unless you abide by the safety standards of UK flying.
Yeah.
So this happens sometimes. Like an airline might get banned from European airspace or UK airspace because of safety records
Mm.
and things like this. So those those guys, that plane, not even allowed in until they pass the safety standards. So it's not an issue in my mind. Like I wouldn't care if like someone from somewhere, I don't know, another country
Yeah.
comes in and goes, yeah, I'm a pilot today, because I know there's the safety nets to go through to get to that point, to get onto the flight
Mm.
deck. It's just not possible. It's just not possible for like these, I don't know, some like cowboy pilots who don't know what they're doing to get, that doesn't exist. So you know, just by the fact that that plane is sat on British soil and those pilots are in that plane, that the safety standards are more than adequate for you, and it's no different than flying the airline that you booked. And I know it's often a lot of people, it's a surprise, and often it's a last minute surprise and stuff like this.
Yeah.
They change it, so it's expectations versus what's actually happening, and that's feeding your fear, maybe making you wobble at the last minute and stuff like that. But it try not to let that really push it, because they're just not allowed to come in and do this stuff. It just doesn't
Yeah.
happen. And you can say that for most airlines. We have ICAO, which is, it's kind of like the UN but for aviation. So it was made after World War II. It's the global aviation board. Um, and you have to be an ICAO recognized country, ICAO recognized airline. Your license, like my license, is ICAO recognized and stuff. And there are a couple of countries that are non-ICAO, like North Korea, and stuff. But most countries around the world are ICAO, and because of that, they have to meet certain safety standards, and they have to. Yeah, they have to abide by certain rules. So you have then the individual countries
Mm.
aviation authority. So for us in the UK, it's the CAA. In the US, it's the FAA. And then they might have more stringent, they can't have less stringent. They might have more stringent like rules and stuff like this that you have to follow,
Mm.
and all this. But yeah, sorry, it's just not, they'll just go, no, we don't want you in here if you're no good. Yeah, it's as simple as that. So
Why do you
don't
think
worry.
people are worried then? Is it just the fact they've never heard of them, or?
I don't know. I don't know whether it's a case of that they want, they're like, I don't know, whatever they're doing. They're flying from Birmingham to Tenerife, whatever they're doing. And so they're expected to operate with that airline. And now it's in their minds, it's not that airline. Maybe it's something like that. Um, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe there's a bit of maybe there's a concept that because they don't necessarily know that country with regards to things like safety standards and stuff like that, so then their fear is making them think the worst.
Mm.
That it's worse safety standard, not a better safety standard, because there are countries that probably do have a better safety standard than the UK. I can't name one or anything like that, but like, doesn't mean we're not necessarily the tippity top or anything like that. Like, no one, I don't even think they rank them. But yeah, maybe there's just concept of, I don't know, it's the unknowing
Yes.
aspect that's really like that's really scaring them. But pilots fly everywhere all the time, all over the world, and we know local laws. So when we fly into different airspace, we know the local laws, what we're supposed to do here. Like I'm in America right now, I'm in Tampa, and I know when I fly out tonight, that like I have certain speed limitation laws, that don't happen in the UK, but they do happen in the US and things like that. And we have these briefing sheets that they give us about this. So we know what to do. Like, don't worry, we're good.
Yeah,
It's gonna be okay.
that's good. And I don't think there's enough. I'd like to hear more use of the phrase tippity top.
Tippity top, yeah.
Yes, yes. I
Not used
don't
enough.
want to mention it. I don't think it's mentioned enough. So sometimes
Absolutely.
people, because I'd sort of to leapfrog onto that piggyback,
Mm.
whichever it is. Sometimes I hear people talk about dry lease, wet lease. What does that
Yes.
mean to the average? Because that's what you're sort of talking about, isn't it? So
Yeah. So effectively, it's what comes with it. So dry lease is just the airplane. So it could be like an airline, and one of their aircraft developed a maintenance issue and had to unexpectedly go into the hangar for a few months. So there are companies that just own airplanes, and they just loan it out to you. So they'll be like, we just need a plane. We're good with crew and all this stuff. So then that's a dry lease. A wet lease is where you actually hire out the crew as well. And so, yeah, that can happen. That's happened before. I've flown for other airlines, like a kind of a secondment type concept. My other airline had there was a regional airline attached to my previous airline, and they were short of were they short of crew or a plane? No, it was a plane. It was a plane because I flew my plane, my airline, but I flew under a different call sign for another airline. It happens. It doesn't mean anything really. You abide by the same rules.
yeah,
And it's down to the airline agreeing to have a set standard for operating. But this is all pre-done anyway. Like those companies wouldn't exist unless they had a high standard of operation. Because what's the point otherwise, right? So that's what wet lease is. Wet lease, it comes with the crew. Dry lease, it's just the aeroplane by itself.
yeah. I think it's useful to think about that because like in the dry lease situation, you think of because we used some of those years ago, and I used to charter aircraft for these flying courses, and the maintenance and everything was all done the same. It's just some of them weren't liveried, and then there's a couple that were just really plain, but they
Just plain
now
hire,
people. There's no tail color on it, it's silver.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a bit of paint. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so that's good. That's cleared that one up. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Right, what else is that?
All right, what else we got?
And you had to jog in the fact you're in Tampa. I did wonder if you were somewhere exotic.
Absolutely. It's Tampa. It's nice. Having a nice time actually. It's not too hot right now, so it's really lovely weather out.
I was there in January doing some work, and it literally belted down with rain the whole time I was there. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited to go to Tampa. I thought, fantastic.
Bit of sunshine.
No, nothing. So,
Well, I'm out here.
I'm glad it's warm.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm rubbing it in. Tippity top, you might say the weather is.
Yes, indeed, yes.
Yeah.
All right, go on then. What's your next one?
Right. Okay. All right. This one, and then I'm going to get on to sort of weather related stuff. This is the last one before we go on to weather related stuff. Low cost carriers. The infamous low cost carriers. People would think they drop safety standards to save money.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start with this. How should I praise this? It's not their choice to drop safety standards. They just can't. They're not allowed to. And like the CAA will just go, no, I'm revoking your right to be an airline. Done. So just as a very brief headline, no, they don't. They absolutely don't. If anything, they actually have very stringent safety standards because a lot of these airlines are what's called training airlines. So they bring in lower hour pilots and help them build up their experience. So they have quite strict and regimented safety standards to sort of mitigate against maybe some lower hour pilots being in the right hand seat. All the captains are loads of hours and really good stuff.
We will have to come back to lower hour pilots in a minute. That will trigger people, but carry on with it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll finish it. We'll jump onto that right after we finish this. But no, absolutely not. They don't lower safety standards because they can't. Even if like the big blue Irish one turns around and goes, oh yeah, we're going to cut all this maintenance scheduling. I don't want to do maintenance anymore. They just wouldn't be allowed to fly. They get audited. Like the CAA or the Aviation Authority for whatever country they're in, and they're in all of them. There's 650 planes. There's a huge amount of them, right? They'll come in and audit them. So they'll go through all their paperwork and maintenance scheduling, and everything's written down. Everything's written down. And they'll go through all that stuff. So if they go, you stopped doing the maintenance checks, and they go, well, yeah, I'm saving money. They'll go, well, you're going to save even more money now because I'm going to stop you from flying. It can't happen. It's not even that it doesn't happen or shouldn't happen or wouldn't. It can't. They can't do it. They will get audited, caught. They would get caught within like a week. They would get caught doing that stuff, and they get shut down. So no, absolutely no way. No way can they do that.
I love that.
That's not how.
So they feel less safe. So it's a perception of something, isn't it?
Yeah, I think being cheap, cheap things aren't well built in, like for instance, like a cheap toy is not a well built toy, or a cheap pair of boots it seems like cheap. It doesn't mean, it means a lower quality in some way, or a lower quality of service and stuff like this. And so, I think then people will then start thinking of other parts of the airline that are cheap, such as safety standards, whatever. And that's just not the case. Like, the reason why you're having to pay £30 to check your bag is because they can't save any money in like not doing maintenance and stuff like that. Like, that's why all of those extra charges are so annoying, is because none of this, like, that is a set expenditure. They cannot touch it, basically. So simple as that, really.
Yeah, because we had somebody on called Emma Henderson. She used to work for one of the I called it low cost, and she said, we don't say that, we say no frills. Oh, all right, okay. And I thought, well, actually, that's probably true, isn't it? Because there is a myth that I've noticed. I do this every time I fly. I don't know if you're the same, but I think, who am I going to fly with? I do tend to go with, if I can go with BA somewhere, for example, because the domestic ones, I will over EasyJet or Ryanair. And it's not because I don't trust the others. It's just because I normally end up paying the same money anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't get all that kind of illusion that I'm getting something cheaper. And I thought about it. I thought, well, actually, it is about no frills, isn't it? Because you end up paying for everything you want. And if you don't want all that stuff, you can actually do it quite cheaply.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You absolutely can. Like, I've done it before, because I live in Edinburgh and my sims are in Gatwick. But it's just one day, so I just come with my little pilot case, and I can get an EasyJet down for 20 quid. Because I'm like, yeah, put me in any seat. I don't care. I'm not selecting a seat because it's just an hour. I don't care. I'm by myself. So it doesn't matter who's sat next to me. I'm always going to have a stranger sat next to me. Just got my little bag. It fits under my seat. I don't care. So I genuinely buy the cheapest little thing going, and it works for me. But yeah, I totally get what you mean, because then if you take you take these no frill airlines, and you want to go Tenerife for 2 weeks with the partner, with the kids and all that, then all of a sudden you've got like a £700 bill on your hands. And that's when you start thinking, I'm not sure about this.
What does this low cost mean?
Yeah, exactly. So they're probably completely correct.
So lower hour pilots. There's somebody be listening to that going, oh my goodness, how many hours has my pilot got? Can I trust them?
Yeah, that's the thing. Now, let's, experience does have a huge weight in the operation of the aircraft. Absolutely. I reckon me and my captain today, between the two of us, I'm guessing we've got 15,000 hours between the two of us. I'm not sure. So yes, experience is something that can't be replaced. It only has to be, there's only one way to gain it. And then there's the vicious cycle of, well, you need to get a job to get experience, but you need experience to get a job. And so there is a point where everyone just has to go, well, there has to be an entry point.
Yes.
For a pilot, because you can't go from 200, because you come out of school with flight school with 250 hours, right? You can't come out of school with 250 hours, not fly any airplanes, and then go in at 5,000 hours into British Airways, say, or something like that. So what were you doing for the last 4,500 hours? It was, oh, well, no one would let me fly because I'm a low hour pilot. Like, it doesn't work that way. So how do we mitigate against that? Right, you got to give these pilots jobs. You got to let them figure out how to do it. There's 1,000 ways. I was a flight instructor for a while. I've got other things, people crop dusting, search and rescue. There's loads and loads of jobs you can get. Absolutely, yes. And then there's going into regional work, and I'm not just talking about low cost no-frills airlines. That's not the only way to go in, right? There's cadet schemes into other airlines, and most airlines have cadet schemes.
Mm.
And how do we mitigate against this stuff? Okay, well, funnily enough, there's more than one pilot on the flight deck. So who's the other person? The other person is a training captain who brings them in. They get very intensive and very long training to get to the point where they're allowed to be released to line. Okay, so that training captain has got thousands of hours, ridiculous amounts of hours, and the training that they receive to be a trainer is phenomenal. We don't just, it's not just a case of like, let me teach you, like, oh, let me teach you the stuff that it says in the books and stuff like this. This is like, you learn the psychology of learning. So how does, like, this person that I'm sat next to, how do I teach them, and how do I make sure that they receive what I'm saying? So for this, it goes really in depth as to what they do and what they can achieve. So these guys got so many hours, these training captains, they got so many hours, they got so much experience. So when a low hour pilot comes in, right? They interview, they'll do a simulator ride, and they'll just see, what they're looking for in those simulator rides, because those simulators are simulators they've never flown before. They're A320, 737s. And so they don't expect you to know how this aeroplane flies because you've never been in one before. You've never been in a plane that's got more than 6 seats before. So then what they're looking for, they're like, can this person learn? So what they'll do is they'll shoot you up and you'll fly around a little bit and you'll land. And then they'll shoot you up, fly around a little bit and land again. And they'll do it 2 or 3 times. And they go, is this person getting better each time? Yes, you've got the potential. So they're hiring potential at that point. And then they put you into the training program, into the training system. And you have huge amounts. So you have ground school. That's where you learn all the systems of the plane. You learn every nut and bolt of that aeroplane. You then have simulators. Actually, no, you don't even go into simulators. You go into something called an IPT, which is like touchscreen computers that simulate the aircraft, like all the buttons of the aircraft and stuff. So you go into the IPT. Then you'll go into the simulator. You have so many simulators. It's so many simulators that you have where you can try stuff out and see how you get on with all this stuff. They won't let you leave the simulators sessions unless you have passed to the CAA standard of flying. Again, we're shooting all UK stuff, right? So you then have to pass a test, and the test isn't internal. The test is the CAA's test. So you have to pass that test. Once you pass that test, then you can finally set foot in an aeroplane. Half the time, the first time you set foot in an aeroplane, you're not even flying. You're doing what's called an observation flight. So you're just watching them fly. So you're not even allowed to touch the things the first time anyway. So I remember doing my observation flight. It was great. So you watch them fly somewhere and you watch them fly back and you go, great. So I've got an idea of like the swing of things, how's it going and all this stuff. And then you then go into God knows how many. What was mine? I think mine was 40 sectors being one singular flight, 40 sectors, and they can be extended at any point with like no issue. So you have 40 sectors with your 41st and 42nd. Actually, it was 4-sector line check. My airline, I don't know what the other ones are. But yeah, you had to do the line check with the training captain. So the whole time you're with the training captain, they're teaching you everything. You're getting, and it's not random. They know exactly what they're doing. So they go, right, we need to make sure you fly into this airport, this airport, this airport, and this airport, because those airports are perhaps a little bit tricky to fly into, and we want to make sure the first time you fly into it, it's with the most experienced person on the line and stuff like this. So they have this built training footprint. It's wild. Like with my airline, it's like different regions of the world. They're like, we have to make sure you go into New York because New York is a whole thing to itself. It's big and it's busy and all this. I said, we need to make sure you have New York exposure. We need to make sure you've got a Caribbean exposure. We need to make sure you've got a Middle East exposure and stuff like this. So yeah, they have this very set. It's very set training footprint, and you'll keep flying to the point, and when you get to the point when you've done like 40 sectors, at this point when you're the pilot, the trainee, you're almost like you're itching to go on your line check at this point because it's not superfluous. That's not the word I'm looking for.
Attracted?
It's a lot, and it's very generous and cushioned training. so that you've got, and because sometimes things happen. Sometimes the weather isn't that good. So then the captain's like, it's not fair for me to make you do this landing in this slightly more difficult weather. I'm going to take the landing for it. That happened to me a few times. Um, and then, so then you do your 40 odd sectors, or whatever, you do your line check, and they go, congratulations, you are checked to line, well done. It doesn't end there. So then often you have like a follow-up line check a few months later just to see how you're getting on. And then in addition to all of this, we have this incredible reporting culture in aviation. And it's not reporting culture. Sometimes some people think of reporting culture as almost malicious or something. It's not. It's good. It's a good thing. So when, let's say they get checked to line, but and then they struggle with a few sectors with a regular captain. That captain might be like, look, I'm gonna go back to the training department, and I'm gonna say I'm not sure this is quite working. And then they'll go back to that training and say, look, hey, we're actually going to give you about 10 more sectors just to see how you're getting on. In addition to all of this, you can get chopped. So if a pilot's not meeting the standards and it looks like they're never going to meet the standards, they'll get chopped. Sorry, bye-bye, like done, right? So there's...
Why would he say doesn't do all that? You've got to love it, haven't you, really? To go through all...
Oh, God, yeah, it's a vocation for sure. But,
yeah.
And so this, the concept of a low-hour pilot, I mean... First of all, what is a low-hour pilot? Like, sometimes I'll fly with a captain and he's got 3 times the hours I've got. And so I'll be like, yeah, I haven't got very many hours. I've only got 6,500. And then you'll get someone fresh out of flight school who's like, I have 250 hours. Aren't I amazing? There's a bit of, it's subjective. And it depends on what you've been flying. For instance, I know a pilot. He's got 20,000 hours. He's never flown a jet. I would not let him touch it. I like if it was like some sort of like life or death fantasy situation, and it's like, who do you want flying your plane? The low hour guy who went through all of that training and got checked to line, or the 20,000 hour guy who's never touched a jet before? No, that guy has flown the jet, thanks. You're like, it's like it's all about relevant experience as well. It's so, yeah, I know people freak out with things like low hour pilots and stuff, but there's low hour pilots have to exist.
Yes.
It's just a fact of life, because otherwise all the pilots are going to get old and die, and then you're going to have no new pilots. You need to have pilots. And so what are you going to do? You've got to let them fly somehow. And so what they do is they put this like really robust mechanism around that
Love that.
to cushion against that. So no, it's not an issue.
Oh, that's brilliant. Love the way you took us through that. That was really
Yeah, so I just realized how long I was talking.
No, it's good. No, it's really good because it was the detail. People love the detail. When you're a nervous flyer, you want to know the ins and outs, because for everything that you answer, and you do it really well, tippity top, it's somebody will be thinking, but what about this? And you just nailed it.
Yeah. Smothering them almost.
No, well, yeah, in a nice way. Yeah. No, it's just like thinking about all that extra stuff and laying it out like that. You can sort of understand why. You got to love it. You got to be really committed to do that, haven't you? Just to go through all of that to even then get to that point and then get chopped.
Yeah. So it's not easy, and most people get filtered out in flight school when they realize how much graft is needed to get through just the basic training, not even get onto it, not even touch a jet or anything like that.
I mean, the other area which I think is really interesting, which is the sort of like the human factors. You've kind of talked about it in terms of the reporting culture, but just what someone's like to work with. Like obviously the willingness to learn is important, but there's also that softer element around, like, would you want to work with them? Would you want to be stuck in a flight deck with this person? You feel safe with them, and maybe you could expand a bit about how that sort of evolved over the years.
Because I think this is the thing. One thing, the way that I'm going to say airline industry specifically, like we're talking about airlines here, the way that the industry has evolved was, in the 1960s, when, planes were still made of wood, and it was very much like what I refer to as stick and rudder. It is like, can you physically manipulate the aeroplane well? Like stick and rudder abilities. And the stick and rudder abilities were the dominant competency in aviation, because there were no computers or anything like that. It was, it was, I don't want to say it's not simple, because it was more difficult, I think. But yeah, it was just very different. And then you also, as a result of that, there was a culture of, how do I describe it? There was a hierarchy in the flight deck: captain, first officer, and then you had flight engineers back then, and all this. And so there was a strict hierarchy, because they needed to know who was flying the plane, who is manipulating the controls, and all this stuff. And then a lot of them came out of the military as well. So there was, they love a hierarchy over at the military, don't they? So fast forward to, the last few decades, and it's very much becoming less and less about stick and rudder. Not to say that you need less stick and rudder abilities, but it is, other things are growing in terms of importance.
Yeah.
And the stick and rudder is not becoming the tippity top aspect. It is like they're starting to figure out that communication is, starting to, they've already figured it out. If an incident or an accident happens, communication between the two pilots flying, 9 times out of 10 has had an effect, a negative consequence from this. So being able to communicate with that other person is it's so important. And I get really interested in this. I'm really interested in sort of psychology and human factors and stuff like this, and so I really like delving into this kind of stuff. But it's so important. And so now, how it's evolved over time is that it's become much more sort of humanistic, how you fly. And so there's no room for egos anymore. And if you think you're going to get in the flight deck and you're the most important person there, even if you're the captain, no, that's not, this kind of hierarchy gradient and stuff, it's becoming much more diluted, because the amount of times that there's been an incident over the years where the first officer was like, no, we're going to crash if you do that, and the captain's like, shut up, I'm in charge. That happens a lot. So they're trying to get that out of the industry. It's a very toxic behavior, and they're doing quite well with it. We have, for instance, we have a set phrase that we're taught to use. So if we are, as a first officer, if I know that the captain's going to do something, and bear in mind, this has never happened to me, and it's never happened to anyone that I know, so this is extremely rare. But if I know something's going really wrong, the captain's not listening to me, and it's compromising the safety of the aircraft, I have a set phrase that I can use, and that phrase is drilled into us, so the captain will trigger and be like, oh no, I've gone too far down a rabbit hole here, and I need to dig myself out and include that the first officer in this. So yeah, we have these mechanisms and stuff that's helped us evolve into this slightly more, it's much more humanistic view in the flight deck.
And I think it's, I mean, it's certainly, since the 80s, I mean, before I know people were flying before and they didn't feel unsafe. But it's just, it's been, the improvement has been ridiculous. And a lot of it's down to the human factors, isn't it? The human element.
Yes.
Because the machines got so good.
Yeah, as a thing, when the machine operates the way it's supposed to 99.9999999% of the time, you go, okay, well, that's close enough to 100%. What's the next bit? And so it's the removal of the arrogance and just the accepting that humans make errors. So let's try and mitigate how these errors are not just made, but how we recover from the errors. And so this is now what we talk about. We're like, when we start our briefings, the first thing we talk about are the threats. So we go, okay, it's the weather's a bit bad today, or whatever the threat is that day. And threats are things like distractions, So maybe the threat is we're running late, and we're like, we're not going to rush. We're late already, so we'll just be late, but we'll make sure we get everything done on time. So we talk about threats and stuff. And so it's understanding, throwing the ego out the window and going, we're very highly likely to make a mistake. What are these mistakes that we could make? How can we mitigate from making these mistakes?
Yeah. And I love that, because that's realistic. But the fact, because it's very hard to comprehend, but the idea that, nobody touches anything without verifying with the other person, moves anything, does anything. It's all that cross-checking that removes that error. It's remarkable to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so ingrained. It's so, it's natural. I don't know what it is. Second, it's like it's just there. I always know to do it, and they know that I'm gonna do it, so they know it's gonna happen. You know, they'll see out the corner of my eye, my hand's up here on a button on the overhead panel.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, it's because she wants me to look at it. What is it? Oh, yeah, confirmed. And so yeah, it's second nature now. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's very, very reassuring. I think it's very hard, and the calmness. It's sort of efficient and purposeful, but it's also just the calmness that you operate up there is very hard for people. When you used to be able to go up into the flight deck and just see them just sat there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
you can't do that now.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, yeah. But the thing is just panicking doesn't help anyone. It just leaches out to everyone else, and so there's no point. And then it makes the other person not believe that you're capable of doing the job as well. So then it compounds more problems and stuff. So yeah, I mean, sometimes we do kind of fake it a little bit. We might be like, I'm just gonna, I'm a little bit nervous about coming into this airport because maybe I've never flown into this airport before or whatever. But we'll just like the little duck under the water thing. But yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's go to your last. So this is the last one.
So this is kind of I've got a couple here, but it's well, the big one is turbulence.
Yeah.
The biggie. And I think this is I mean you're more of an expert on this stuff than me, but I think turbulence is probably
thanks very much.
Yeah, I see. Tippity top. But I think turbulence is probably one of the biggest ones when you ask your
not being in control, turbulence.
Yeah, so things like I've seen people who are they're on the Wi-Fi on the plane, and then they drop a message into the group and they say, "Help! The seatbelt signs come on." And this is the thing: is that it doesn't mean you're in more danger.
Yeah,
it actually means you're now in less danger because you're belted in, so less things can happen to you. And
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's not. It's not, you're not in more danger, or the captain coming over the PA saying, "Oh, we got some bumps up ahead," or something like this. It's almost, I don't know. Could you possibly see it as a reassurance? I'm posing it as a question because I don't like to tell people how to think or feel. But like, could you see it as a reassurance because now you know that the pilot knows there's something up ahead, and now we're going through the mitigation process of strapping you in and stuff like that. Maybe we're asking the cabin crew to stop the service. We're asking them to stop the service because we don't want them spitting coffee all over you and stuff like this. We don't want anything like that happening. So it's all about mitigation, what we're doing. And so potentially you could think of it as I'm now more safe, rather than I'm unsafe because something's going to happen. I think perhaps think about it the opposite way.
Yeah, that's a good way. I like that. That's going to get knowledge.
This one gets my goat. And I know it gets your goat too. The turbulence apps.
Yep.
Yeah, this is probably the number one thing I comment on is the turbulence apps. And I'm going to try and be a bit diplomatic about it, but the turbulence, I went on a turbulence app just now to look at my flight tonight. Now my flight's in about 8 hours. The flight plan hasn't even been filed yet. It gets filed about 3 hours before departure. So not even the airline knows what way I'm going to be flying home. And yet it's told me that I'm going to have some moderate turbulence.
Oh, are you worried?
So worried. And it also got a few things wrong. So first it told me the aircraft type, and that was correct. It also told me my maximum takeoff weight was 251 tons. It's not. It's 242. So I don't know where it's getting that figure from. And then what it did, it drew the Great Circle route. Now, the Great Circle route is if you were to draw a straight line between where I am, Tampa, and Heathrow, where I'm going. If you were to draw a straight line, and it does the turbulence along that. But we almost never fly a great circle route. We always fly it up and around it and stuff. And this time of year, we almost never, especially going over the Atlantic and especially flying from west to east, we almost never fly a great circle route. And you want to know why? There's a huge jet stream up in the North Atlantic. So what we do is we cut really like almost straight up north to catch the tailwind of that jet stream. Saves us tons, literally tons of fuel, and we just ride the jet stream all the way to the UK. So I don't know what he's talking about when he's going, oh yeah, you're gonna fly a great circle route. It's like, you don't even know. I don't even know. I don't know what altitude I'm flying. And then it then goes on to talk about, oh, your pilot might climb or descend 2,000 feet. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, they might deviate 40 miles left and right. I've never deviated 40 miles left or right for turbulence. What are you talking about? It makes so many assumptions about your flight. And it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Don't worry about it. If you want to know if it's going to be bumpy, I'm afraid you're just going to have to find out when the crew tells you. And I know that probably isn't nice for some people to hear because they like the preparation and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's not probably the best news. But these turbulence apps, they run on huge assumptions. They assume aircraft type, aircraft weight, aircraft speed, aircraft altitude. They assume the route.
Mm.
I can't, like, there's nothing that I can do to convince you otherwise. There's so many things they assume. So if you're going on it because you think, because I know what you're doing, I'm talking to the audience. You're going on it because you're hoping it will say it's going to be a smooth flight.
Mm.
There's no such thing as a smooth flight. It just almost doesn't exist, I'm afraid. And so when going on it and saying it's fear mongering, it's feeding into what you're really potentially fearing the most, or is definitely a fear.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So do what you can to prepare yourself for turbulence. Ask the crew when you get on board if you really, really want to know. But just know that turbulence will not drop an airplane out of the sky at all. When you feel that big whoosh bump or something like that, honestly, we've not moved 10 feet. It's nothing. They just, these turbulent bumps are really not that big of a deal for the aircraft. People think that aircraft are these weak little things that can shatter and break at any moment, and that's mostly thanks to Hollywood. These aircraft are incredibly strong. Like, if you go on YouTube and like look at aircraft testing videos, the stuff they do to those planes, unreal. And don't worry, they don't sell those planes to airlines. Those airplanes get scrapped afterwards. But they do like incredible things. These airplanes can survive in ridiculous circumstances. So a little bit of turbulence, it's nothing. We don't report it even to engineering, like light turbulence. Like, it just doesn't, it's just such a non-issue. So please, if there's any way that you can, try and not go on those turbulence apps.
Well, I'd even go so far as to extend it to checking the weather apps, because even if they're slightly more accurate, they're still a prediction. And also, like, unless you are a meteorologist, then how are you going to know what you're reading? So
Exactly.
lots of nervous flyers check the weather, and they'll even look up at the sky and go, "Oh, it's going to be smooth."
Yeah.
How do you know? By looking at it.
Yeah, I know. How could you possibly know that? And there's I've seen a few people comment, and they look and it gives the wind speed, and they go, "Oh, it looks like really strong winds. I'm super nervous." And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean it's dangerous. It's, well, first of all, like, I mean, gosh, it depends what direction it's going.
Yeah.
You could have a wind of like 50 knots, but if it's straight down the runway, it's actually really safe. It's better for us. It improves our aircraft performance. It's safer for us. We can land with a tailwind, like, that's okay, and we can land with crosswinds. Like, these aircraft are tested to huge crosswinds, and it's okay. So just saying strong winds equals dangerous, no, there's so much more nuance to that. So that's the thing, is it's just taking a look at something looks like it's something you can't handle, perhaps, or something. Like if I were a pilot, I would be worried about that or something. It's like, well, like let the pilot do that stuff. Let the pilot do the worrying and all this stuff. And we just don't go when it's no good. If the wind's really strong, we might we'll push back, we'll go to the runway, but we'll just sit there and then we'll wait, and then the wind will die down 10 minutes later, and then we go. Like it's all okay. Like never cancelled a flight because the wind's got too strong. Like it doesn't really work that way. Like if the wind's gotten too strong because there's a hurricane in or something, that's fine because you can't see because it's a hurricane. But like just because it's a breezy day, like that's not what we're doing here. No, we go and we wait for it to be safe, and when we go, it's safe. Simple.
Do you feel it's just been like therapy? You feel?
Yeah, no, I feel like I've just been telling everyone off, like scolding everyone.
Well, no, not at all. I think you've been. I think it's fair, you know, like because the thing is, if you don't know, then you might tell yourself certain things, and so different people coming into the Facebook group, for example, are at different stages. So people have been around for a while because the Facebook group's been going 5 years now. You know, they'll post something, but they'll also know that it's their anxiety, it's not the fact. Whereas people who are newer might literally be doing what you said, and so if they don't know, then they've got Rosie Scott.
Yeah, they've got.
I really like that.
Yeah.
You're never worried about turbulence is the main message. You're not worried whatsoever.
No, and we don't even like the turbulence forecasting that we have within the airlines and stuff is so good nowadays. Like we had one flight and there was severe turbulence all over the North Atlantic forecast, and so the airline was like, okay, and they just rerouted us. They said, okay, fine. We just went a completely different route. We went really far south and cut across, and they were like, yeah, we're just not going to go near it. Like, done. That's it. So it's not a big deal. Right, we know how to mitigate this stuff, and it's not just the pilots, and it's not just. I think some people think that we kind of fly by the seat of our pants and stuff, and it's really not. Like by the time we've gotten to the airport and get given the flight plan, there's like 100 people who behind the scenes have been working on getting us to that point, and there's so many things well beyond that. So like rerouting us around that severe turbulence, for instance, like that decision was made whilst I was still in bed asleep. There's so many things at play here, and it's just that it's only for safety. Like that would have cost the company money going along the route, two sides of a triangle, and it would have cost the company money, but they decided it for passenger safety and comfort, that comes first. Simple as that. So yeah,
that. I really like the fact. I love the way you describe it. You're looking at this turbulence app and you're thinking, I don't know what its level of flying. It's already telling me the route. I think that's it's a really simple way. So I like you think about that. Let's look to think of Rosie going, stop it.
Yeah, it's not just me having a go. It really is just not accurate information.
Yeah,
it really is. But yeah.
Nice. So, thank you. So, if you had a sort of like a sum up message for people who are scared of flying, and just the sort of like why they shouldn't be, what would you say?
It's wildly safe. It's this juggernaut of safety that's almost unstoppable. We have so many safety nets from so many people. I don't even know the full extent of the safety nets, because I've got my own little bubble that I look after, but there's 100 other people that have a safety bubble that they look after too. And all of our bubbles overlap a little bit and all this stuff. It's got so much momentum, the safety side of things. It's unreal. And I think maybe next time, if you're having a bit of a moment where you're like panicking and stuff, you might want to think that, are you panicking because you have all of the accurate information? Or are you panicking perhaps because you might have made assumptions along the way, and now you're feeding off something that maybe isn't actually true or correct fully? And so I hope this has shed a little bit of light on the inner workings of it all, and maybe help you go a bit easier along your way.
Oh, that's amazing. Rosie Scott, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming back and doing that. That's entertaining as always, and love the way you describe things, but some really sort of helpful, practical things, and in a way, maybe it's been a bit of therapy for you as well. to get these little pet peeves out. But yeah, just listen to this podcast several times until you get it in your head. Rosie's not worried. You shouldn't be worried. Oh, sure.
Let me do the worrying for you, okay? That's not your job to worry. It's my job to worry, hey?
Yeah, love that. Oh, well, thank you. Thanks ever so much as well for interrupting your layover. And hopefully we'll get to go do a bit of more shopping or something interesting now to recover, something to eat.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go get a bit of food.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thanks so much.